You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. And I'm sorry this is a little bit late because I was literally out of the country when Canada played against Panama, and I was unable to watch the game live, but I did keep up with it and then watch the highlights the day after, and now I'm home and have watched the game in full, so I can talk about it and break it all down. So it'll be good. And piggybacking off of the last Canada episode where I had said I thought there was an international break in November, there is. There is, in fact, an international break in November. Canada will be playing Suriname in the Nations League, and it'll hopefully be two good games. It's, I believe, on November 15th, they will be playing Suriname as Suriname hosts, and then on the 19th of November at home at BMO Field will be the second game. This is doubly exciting because it'll be my first Canada game since starting the Maple Footy Podcast. I've seen them multiple times in the past, but not since I've started the podcast because they didn't play on home soil all year until this game against Panama, and I was not in Canada to go see it. So it'll be good. The last game I was at was the Canada game against Jamaica, 4-0, if that rings any bells. If it doesn't, it's the game where they qualified for the World Cup, officially qualified for the World Cup. So yeah, I'm very excited for the November international break coming up, of course. And before we properly start, big announcement, as I had posted on my socials, if you do follow me over there, and I had popped the question in the last podcast where I had said that I wanted to potentially maybe cover the CPL playoffs if people were interested, and it turns out people were very interested. Every vote I got across socials was a yes. So 100% of the people that voted did say yes to that. So with that, I can happily say I will be covering the CPL playoffs this year. It'll be a lot of fun. They start this week. More kind of information about coverage at the end of this episode, so stick around if you want to see how that's going to work out. But yeah, they start this week, and outside of that, you're going to have to stick around to see what else I'm going to say about it. And with that being said, let's start with our game against Panama. A hard-fought 2-1 win. One that, honestly, I thought we played really well in the first half and for about the last 20, 25 minutes of the second, but we really fell asleep kind of 20, 25 minutes of the second half, and some old issues kind of reared their ugly head again, which I will talk about. But let's start off on a little bit of side note. I thought our ref was great, and I don't usually give much plaudits to the referees because they don't usually earn it, because the refs are usually not the best. But it was extremely, extremely refreshing to see a ref's performance that was kind of called just straight down the middle. She didn't really make herself known. You weren't sitting there going, that's a terrible call, that's a terrible call, that's a terrible call. Oh, she's wearing Canada red. Oh, she's wearing Panama white. You know, nothing like that. I missed the ref's name, so I don't know who it was, but I'm glad that she was a very good official, and it was just refreshing is all, especially coming off of the weekend of the Premier League games that I had watched. So it was nice to see. And pregame and halftime stuff, David Davies and Lorea all got their 50 cap club kind of recognition before the game, although obviously they did reach those caps, I think about 8 games ago for each of them now. I think they're all on 58-ish. I know Lorea's on 58. I think they're all in and around that now. So, but because this was our first game back in Canada, it was our first time that we were allowed to, well, we could have acknowledged them at any point, I suppose, but it was the first time we could really give them that home acknowledgement, and it was a nice little moment, definitely well-deserved. And Stefan Eustáquio, same as the other boys, was presented with his 2023 Canadian Men's Player of the Year award. Yeah, he got presented it in October of 2024, but once again, we didn't have a home game, so do it in front of a home crowd, and I'm glad that he was able to. And at halftime, Dwayne De Rosario was acknowledged as a Canadian Soccer, I know I'm not supposed to say that on the podcast, but that's what's called, the Canadian Soccer Hall of Fame, and just massive applause for him because he is a Canadian footballing legend. Before Laren and David came along, he was our top goal scorer. He's our 5th most capped player of all time. And yeah, just an all-around legend. Played for many MLS teams, such as TFC, San Jose. So, he deserves it. Well-deserved. And it was nice to see him get the recognition once again in front of a full kind of Toronto crowd. Now on to the game. We already know how this works, positive, negatives, and then we move to player by player. So let's talk pros. Obviously, let's start off positive, guys. So I thought we played a really good high line and we're on the front foot for most of the first half. Just like how we were against the States, that high line had really pressed and really helped us on both goals that we got. The press for the first goal had Panama cough up the ball, and we pounce on it. Ali Ahmed then puts a great ball to Kyle Laren, 1-0. And then the second goal, Derek Cornelius wins the ball first up in the air, and credit to both of our center backs as they both kind of won a majority of the 50-50 balls that they were involved in. And then David, of course, takes the ball, finds Miller, who then finds David immediately. And it's 2-1, a great finish from David, a great little play. And in the second half, I will say our pressing and high line kind of died down a little bit. And then we made the changes like Oso, Bear, Miller, and Saliba all coming on, and I thought we kind of regained it. Marsh has us playing like we're the big boys, like we believe we can do it. And the opponent is the underdog, not us, against certain opponents, which is very important. He's now showed that we can be the free-flowing, high-pressing, high-line attackers and also conservative defensive underdogs depending on the situation. He's struck a great balance and is doing this really well, and he's judging it against certain opponents. When we were in the Copa America, we were kind of had to be that defensive conservative underdog given the nature of the teams that we were playing. But now playing the CONCACAF teams, we're coming in as the favorites and we're playing like that. And I think that's really important and it's really good. I remember all the way back in my 4th episode, I had said he wouldn't have been my choice per se to be the manager, but we do have to back him. And at the moment, while there are flaws, it hasn't all been perfect, of course. He's 11 games in charge, and he has us believing this is some of the best Canadian football I've seen us play in my lifetime. So he's doing something right, and credit where it's due. He was touted as a statement signing in the dugout, and so far I would say he has been that, in my opinion. Like I said, it hasn't all been perfect. There are some changes that I think still need to be made and are in the process of being made, but so far, 11 games in, I mean, it's been pretty good, I would say. I also liked a little short point here. The grip between our teeth, Laren, Cornelius, Lorea, Miller, Oso, Waterman, all kind of got into it at certain points of the game against Panama players. There was no backing down from a fight for our boys. They were all up for it, even though it was a friendly. They weren't just gonna sit there and take it. They gave it back. It was just nice to see as the Canadians were the nice people, right? So it's nice to see that, maybe we've got some grit in our teeth. We'll fight back. We'll bite back. It's nice to see. And finally, a big win for the CPL. Kwesi Poku, in particular, he joins the likes of Joel Waterman, who he actually entered the field to play with, and Tristan Borges, as guys who, off the top of my head, are products of the CPL and have now stepped on the pitch for Canada. Marsh has spoken highly of Poku, which could allude to the fact that if he keeps up his great form that he had with Forge earlier in the season and has carried over to his team in Belgium, then there could be more call-ups in his future, and I really hope that is the case. I would love to see more CPL guys, more guys with CPL roots getting calls up. So it's just nice to see a guy like Kwesi Poku, a young guy, who get rewarded with such a great season. He gets rewarded with his first call-up and his first ever Canadian cap. So big congrats to Kwesi Poku. A couple of cons, however, our set pieces remain, in my opinion, a big weakness for us. Chouanier, for me, is probably our best corner kick taker, with Estacio or Chouanier being our best free kick taker, but neither of them are on every single one of them and can be guilty of being a little bit inconsistent. And even when the delivery is very good, I find that we kind of lack that presence to pounce on any of those deliveries. That's my opinion. And if you want to be a big team and have big success, you have to take advantage of these set pieces, which I find we are really struggling to do so. A couple of other things, those moments where we kind of tend to shut off, and it's something that I've kind of said in the past before, maybe our defense, our attack, they shut off. Crépeau this game a couple of times uncharacteristically shuts off. He just kind of comes out from his box without any real plan of trying to win the ball, get the ball at all, and we're lucky it didn't cost us. But it just kind of shows that there are still sometimes those lapses in judgment and concentration that have cost us. I remember it cost us in the Copa, like against Uruguay in the 95th minute when Luis Suarez was left unmarked in the box, or even a couple of times in this game, our attack kind of shuts off. We don't have that final ball, or maybe we do, but then our attack just kind of whiffs a shot, or you get what I'm saying. Just sometimes these moments of concentration need to be seen through instead of shutting off before the job is done. And then one that is kind of just me wanting to talk about it. This isn't really much to do with the game, but no Kamal Miller, Junior Hoylett, Samuel Piette, or Alistair Johnston. For Johnston, I mean, he's got more calls up in his future, knock on wood, obviously. Hopefully no injuries or suspensions or nothing like that. But Kamal, of course, has a lot of competition when it comes to guys like Bombito, Cornelius, and then you add in Waterman, Luc de Fougerolles, and that's just off the top of my head. But Kamal, to me, missing out on a Canada call-up, I feel, is a little bit harsh. I know Jesse Marsch hasn't used him a ton, especially as much as he was being used under John Herdman, per se. And I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I really do rate Kamal very highly. So I just, what I'm saying is I hope that there's more calls up in his future for Jesse Marsch. I don't know, maybe he had a niggling injury. Maybe Marsch just wanted to try a couple of young guys, because I know he brought a good few young guys for this camp. So maybe it's just that, like I said, I just really hope that a guy like Kamal Miller still plays his part in this program, because I think he has a lot to give to this program, because he is a quality player. And then guys like Hoylett and Piette, I know, have both missed out now on the last couple of international call-ups. They're obviously both extremely talented, and I'm a big fan of both of them, and they've both played a massive part in Canada's success in recent years. Bringing them up also wouldn't feel unearned and not like we're clinging on to the past, kind of like how John Herdman was a little bit guilty of towards the end of his tenure. There were some guys that he kind of let hold on a bit too long when they probably shouldn't have been getting those calls up, but we're kind of getting those calls up because of who they were, what they contributed to the program. With guys like Hoylett and Piette, I don't feel like it would be unearned. I still feel like they have stuff to give to this program, especially Piette, who I think is only like 30 as well. Like, he's not long in the tooth at all. I know Junior Hoylett is kind of getting up there, but he's still a very good player, very valuable player to have. Both of them are. So, in my opinion, they do deserve the calls up. But obviously, what a great headache to have that we're sitting here going, oh, guys like Hoylett and Piette should be called up. But they're not getting called up because there's other guys playing just as well as them at the moment. So, you know, what one issue to have. There was a time where we could barely scrape together, 5 guys, let alone like 11 to start a game. So it is a nice headache to have. I'm just saying, maybe it's more sentimental of me that I would like for these guys to get called up, because I do think they deserve it. Like I said, I don't think it would be unearned, but obviously Jesse Marsch's team, and he's going to call up who he wants to call up. That had really nothing to do with the game. It just felt like the Canadian podcast, so I felt like I kind of wanted to say that. But anyways, guys, let's move into player by player. So firstly, with Crepeau, I kind of already alluded to him. He was kind of uncharacteristically not at his confident and assured best. Not that he was bad by any means. I kind of found he didn't really have a whole ton to do, in all fairness. Just those couple of times in the first half where he's kind of just left out in no man's land, coming for balls that he was never gonna get, which is very unlike him. So it might have just been off night, off half even. He, like I said, didn't have much to do outside of that. For the goal that Panama had scored, he may have potentially could have been quicker off of his line, but even then I don't really chalk it up to it being his fault. I thought it was more so on our defense than anything. But yeah, I mean, just a pretty quiet night for Crepeau with kind of 2 moments of what's he doing, but in the end they didn't cost us. So yeah, that's really all I have to say on Crepeau, which is unlike me. I usually have a lot of flowers to give for Max Crepeau. Moving into our captain, our left back, he looks so much more comfortable, let's be honest, playing in this back line. In the first few games under Jesse Marsch, really thinking about that Netherlands game, he played with Derek Cornelius and Bombito, and he looked like he was trying to overcompensate for them, maybe a bit uncomfortable having not played with them in the past. Like I said, especially that Netherlands game. But now he looks so much more comfortable playing with them, not afraid to use them as an outlet, carry the ball forward, knowing that one of them's kind of going to push over and cover for him as he kind of moves up, which is good because he's our best player and we want our best player playing at his best. So, yeah, I thought it was a very good performance for Davies. I think you can kind of point the finger at him and Cornelius for the goal. But outside of that, I thought he had a very, very good performance. For the goal, you would expect a little bit more from guys like Cornelius and especially Davies to not shut off in the way that they did. But alas, it does happen. And in the end, we do still win the game. So it is kind of still one of the things where it goes back to us not shutting off, and especially for a guy like Davies, one of the best left back, one of the best players in the world, and I will confidently say that, baby, one of the best players in the world. You would expect him to not shut off in that scenario, especially wearing the captain's armband. But looking at the positives that Davies did, I thought he got forward a lot, especially when Liam Miller came in, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But he really got to carry the ball, which he's a defender first, yes, absolutely. But one of the highlights of Davies is as a left back, he's so explosive, so comfortable on the ball, has all the tricks in his bag that he can really carry the ball forward, cause people problems. And that's what he was doing a lot of here, which we've kind of seen him restricted at points in his Canada career in the last year-ish. We've kind of seen him restricted in that sense. So it was great to see him kind of get to really express himself. But moving away from Davies, we're going to look at the other fullback, Richie Laryea, who, in all fairness, I don't have a whole ton to say on him. I thought he had a solid performance, but didn't really have a whole ton to do. Nothing really troubled him all that much. He was characteristically good. It was a pretty standard Richie Laryea performance. Won some fouls, won the ball, kind of tried to get forward to create, was pretty solid at the back too. So, sorry, Richie, I don't have a whole ton to say, but I do still love you. So, moving into our 2 center backs. Starting with our number 13, Derek Cornelius. And I do have a lot to say about Derek Cornelius, just because I feel like he's kind of really gone under the radar in Jesse Marsch's Canada, and Moise Bombito has been getting a lot of the headlines as our center back, and that's absolutely fair, totally well-deserved, and I have a lot of love to give for him in just a minute. But first, I do want to talk about Cornelius, just because I feel like he's been a revelation, brought in from the cold. He's been great, hasn't put a foot wrong in my opinion, willing to throw his body at the ball if he has to, very comfortable on the ball and well assured. When he's on the ball, I feel pretty relaxed knowing that he's okay on the ball. He doesn't, and now that I've said this, I hope I don't jinx him, but he's very comfortable on the ball. You don't really see him under pressure, and even if he is, you don't really go, oh. He kind of just gets out of it, finds an outlet, finds a player, he just feels very calm. He's a good presence at the back, and I think it's very nice to see. His distribution, honestly, is top-notch. His ability to almost quarterback from deep, it's great to see. It's just such a nice career resurgence, which I think people are kind of forgetting. He was in and out of the Whitecaps lineup at club level for a couple of years in 2019 and 2020. Then he went out on loan to Greece in 21 to 22, and he earned some pretty regular football there, and then earned a permanent move to Malmo, partially to ensure his consistent minutes to kind of help rebuild and maintain that form that he got in Greece, as maybe it wasn't going to come in Vancouver, or maybe he just felt like he needed to stay in Europe. I don't know the full details, but obviously he then has a very impressive year with Malmo, wins the league and I believe a League Cup, and that's his first and only season there. And throughout all these seasons at an international level, he was in and out of the Canada lineup at best if he was getting called up. He wasn't a regular under Herdman. He would be a name that you'd see maybe in the rosters every now and then, and potentially get minutes here and there. He obviously had been capped before Marsh, but like I said, he was never a nailed-on starter with John Herdman. And everyone that's not me hating on John Herdman. We had center backs at the time as well that were still pretty good and were good for the program. So that's not me hating on John Herdman. That's just me saying that he wasn't really getting a sniff, and he was just not nailing down that, wasn't getting a proper run in the starting 11, which is a far cry from when he was named the Canada Youth International Player in 2018. Then over this summer in the Copa, he impresses after Jesse Marsh gives him a nice run out, and he's getting transfer rumors to Eredivisie and Belgium, which obviously are great moves. But then the big move comes in. Marseille starts sniffing around, and before you know it, he's signed and playing with international teammate Kone. Funny story, Marseille was scouting Kone, and they came along Derek Cornelius. It's been great to see what feels like a potentially meteoric rise was actually a pretty slow burn fizzle to the top that eventually reached a fever pitch, thanks in part to Jesse Marsh for believing in him, but also for Derek Cornelius, who himself waited, worked hard, grafted, took some chances going to Europe, playing in Greece, playing for Malmo, had good seasons, was getting minutes. And it's just so nice to see. He waited, he got his chance, and now he's taking his chance. And I think, to me, he looks like a top center back in CONCACAF and is killing it at Marseille at the moment. It just makes me really happy seeing a guy like Derek Cornelius, who, like I said, in and out, and now he's really gotten his chance. And, I mean, could you imagine Jesse Marsh's Canada without Derek Cornelius? I really don't think you could. We've seen players like Kone, Schaffelberg, Liam Miller, Ali Ahmed, Chouanier all take their chances as well. So this isn't exclusive to Derek Cornelius, and I think that is a testament to Jesse Marsh that he's giving these guys these opportunities, and that's phenomenal. And hopefully with guys like Tani Oluwaseyi getting his nods in for Canada, Kwesi Poku now getting called up, potentially other CPL guys or whoever else, it'll be great to see these guys work and get an opportunity, hopefully much like Derek Cornelius did. And I just really wanted to say that about Derek Cornelius because I've been so impressed with him every time he's donned that Canada jersey since Marsh has come in. He's been phenomenal. I've absolutely adored watching him play. To me, I'm so happy he got that Marseille move and is doing so well in Marseille, and I just hope it continues. And I just really want to say that because, like I said, Bombito has gotten the headlines, and once again, not taking anything away from Bombito because I will be getting into him, but I just really want to say about Cornelius because I think he's been a revelation at center back for me, alongside, of course, Moise Bombito, who we now will talk about. And yeah, I think we can believe the hype, guys. Marsh says talent-wise, he's among some of the best in the world in his position, and has said in the past that he sees the same talent in Bombito that he saw with guys like Konate, who now plays for Liverpool, Upamecano, who now plays for Bayern Munich. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big compliment, I would say. And yeah, I think he just shows all the proper qualities of a top-level center back, especially for a guy who 2 years ago was playing at the community college level. That's pretty crazy to think about, that he went from, community college to now playing with Nice and a regular Canada call-up, and is looking like a star. Like, he's looking so good. Like, where did he come from? It's amazing to see, and just kind of is a testament to, once again, how far the Canadian game has come. But yeah, he's got all the qualities that you would want in a center back, especially modern day center back. He's got insane pace. A couple of times a player would sneak in behind him, but Bombito always caught him. It just shows that even if the opponent has two-step advantage on Moise Bombito, do they really? I don't think they do, unless that player is like, I don't even know who's a very quick player right now. Mykhailo Mudryk, maybe. Like, if I would love to see that foot race, Mudryk versus Bombito. I think that'd be impressive, don't you? But yeah, he's able to carry the ball forward as well. Like, another young center back that I watch pretty regularly, Wesley Fofana of Chelsea. Bombito carries that ball forward, whereas Derek Cornelius will kind of quarterback it. Bombito is comfortable to carry it forward, and that's not me saying Bombito won't distribute as well, because he does, and he does it very well. But it's just another thing in his locker, and he's also a very commanding air presence, much like Cornelius on our second goal, where he won the ball in the air. Bombito was winning, it felt like almost everything in the air, right? Like, anytime he had to, it felt like he was, which, for a center back, he's not the biggest, you know what I mean? Like, he is a big guy, but he's not like a Virgil van Dijk level of like, whoa, maybe he is. I don't know. I haven't looked up their heights. It just feels like he might not be, but it's just so good to see that a guy he's got all the tools. And he's Canadian, and we have him, and he's playing in a top 5 league with his center back partner. It's wonderful, isn't it? What a time to support, isn't it? Moving into our midfield, of course, we will start out with Jacob Schaffelberg, who I think really struggled to get into this game. And this is where I'm kind of going to re-bring up Alphonso Davies, because I've noticed between him and Davies, they don't complement each other the best. Now, it's not me saying they can't play together, but let me kind of explain here. Schaff is a carrier of the ball with a lot of running in those legs, and he'll carry that ball, take a man on, not likely to really use an overlapping run, potentially as much as some other players might. Now, with Davies, in an attacking aspect, he's a carrier too. He likes the overlap, but is capable of kind of inverting and move centrally. It's kind of what makes Davies and why he's one of the best in the world. Now, I don't think that Davies and Schaff can't coexist, because we saw it at the Copa and in our last window. The only thing is that he's kind of left to just defend and not be used much as an attacking outlet, Davies, that is. And let's be clear, by the way, Davies is an unbelievably good left back and a great defender, which is often overlooked about Alphonso Davies. But Alphonso Davies likes to run and get those overlaps, which is why I think him and Liam Miller actually link up well together, better than Schaff and Davies in an attacking aspect, because Liam Miller is a good option. He's open to the overlap and inverting with Davies. We saw in the friendlies back in June and in the Copa, he offers himself as an outlet and has a good interchange with Davies, both on and off the ball. We saw it in this game against Panama when Miller came in. Davies pushes centrally a bit, takes the ball, dances around Panama defenders, and he lays off to Miller, who's able to bend a shot on target. With Schaff, Davies was carrying the ball forward a lot during this game, but it kind of felt like the two weren't on the same wavelength. A couple times Schaff kind of got in the way. And of course, this is not a Jacob Schaffelberg hate train, by the way. I'm super happy that Schaffelberg is a regular in this team and in this setup, and is a household name in Canada, it feels like, at this point. I've been watching him since the beginning of his career, so I'm very happy for him. It's just something I noticed, because either way, I think there are positives and negatives to Davies playing with either Schaff or Liam Miller. This was just apparent in this game, and once again, one issue to have really when you have to choose between Liam Miller, who's in top form, and a Jacob Schaffelberg, who's in top form. But it is just something I noticed, that maybe Miller and Davies kind of complement each other better, and you can maybe use Jacob Schaffelberg as a sub, or maybe if Schaffelberg isn't kind of really complimenting or in it with the game as much. You could maybe take him out at half and put Miller in. I thought that you probably could have taken Schaffelberg out at half and put in Liam Miller. Once again, I love Schaffelberg. I'm just saying that it's just something I've kind of noticed when Schaff and Davies are kind of playing together. One of them ends up having a quieter afternoon than you would have liked of Davies or Schaffelberg, and this time it ended up being Schaffelberg that had a bit of a quieter afternoon, whereas in the past it has been Davies. Like I said, they can coexist. We saw it in the Copa America. Just sometimes I think their styles clash a little bit too much because they're a little bit similar. That's all I'm saying about Schaffelberg. But yeah, a quiet afternoon for him, and he will be all right. I don't think it was a disaster class performance by any stretch of the imagination. I just thought he was pretty quiet. He was still good. He got on the ball a good few times. Him and Davies occasionally did link up well. But yeah, just overall, not the explosive Jacob Schaffelberg performance that we've come to know and love. Looking over to our right side, Ali Ahmed, I think he's going to make it pretty hard for Jesse Marsch to just put Tajon Buchanan back into 11 whenever he's ready. And let's be honest, we love the competition. I mean, look at our left side. As I just mentioned, Liam Miller and Jacob Schaffelberg. Now on the right, we have Ali Ahmed, and hopefully when he's back healthy and playing his best, Tajon Buchanan. The Whitecaps winger is attracting a lot of attention from the Bundesliga, Serie A, and Ligue 1. He's also been very vocal that he wants to be playing in a top 5 league come the 2026 World Cup. And it is easy to see why. This guy looks the real deal. He looks so comfortable on the ball, ready to take players on, had some great overlaps with Richie Larea, was kind of pushed central a couple of times, pushed out wide a couple of times, and he just really looks suited to the environment. He looks like such a tricky player and just unpredictable as well. You don't know if he's going to distribute and let someone run. You don't know if he's going to take on his man, if he's going to run in behind. I think it's a very, very interesting player to watch because he's very entertaining and he's very good. I don't know how else to say it. He's very good, and you can see why teams in the top leagues are kind of sniffing around, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes because I think he does really suit a Bundesliga, Ligue 1, or Serie A level game. I think he could really, really flourish in one of those leagues. He's kind of got the physicality to him. He's got that final ball, as you saw, with a great assist to Kyle Larin. It was right on a plate for the number 9. And like I said, not afraid to take a guy on, not afraid to run it behind, not afraid to kind of move in a little bit, move out a little bit. He's a very, very useful, I think, player to have. And once again, it's great that he's Canadian and we do have him. Looking kind of centrally, Mathieu Choinière, kind of like Ali Ahmed for Tage. I think Choinière is laying down a case to kind of say, hey, maybe Kone shouldn't be just re-given the starting spot. Once again, no disrespect to Ishmael Kone, amazing player. But Mathieu Choinière has kind of come in and has really impressed. Kind of like Kone, he's not afraid to carry the ball, does the defensive bits really well, does the attacking bits really well. He's really that kind of midfielder that I really like to watch, where, like I said, carries the ball, really good defensively, attacking, and he complements, I find, the players around him really well, which is really important when you're playing as a central midfielder, in my opinion. He's got a good eye for a ball. He's, I think, probably our best set piece taker at the moment, which, I mean, in all fairness, isn't saying a whole ton because I do think that's one of our weak spots, but I think that he is actually a quality set piece taker regardless of the competition around him for those kind of set piece taking duties. So it's very nice to kind of see once again that saying Ishmael Kone is not just going to walk back into the 11. I think Choinière, he's a very much like Ali Ahmed. He's a very useful player to have and currently doing pretty well at Grasshoppers. I know he's only played a few times so far, scoring on his debut, of course, as I mentioned a couple episodes ago. And hopefully he kind of continues doing well with Grasshoppers, and hopefully he continues to get these Canada call-ups. Looking at his midfield partner, Stefan Eustáquio, I thought it was a solid outing for our vice captain. I thought he really controlled the tempo and the flow of this game. When he was at his best, we were at our best. When he kind of was pressing, we were pressing. When he was kind of in control, calm, we were in control and we were calm, which is what you expect from Stefan Eustáquio. I think in this second half a little bit we did lose that, but then we ended up kind of getting that change from Chouanier to Oso, and I thought once again Oso kind of helped settle the game down. He kind of complements Eustáquio really well. The two have played together so many times now. They know each other, and I just thought that when we were good, Stefan Eustáquio was good. And I think that's because when Stefan Eustáquio is good, we're good. He's very important to our system. There's a reason why he was the Canadian Men's Player of the Year last year. He's very important to our team. And I thought it was a good performance. Maybe he kind of dipped a little bit for about 20 minutes. But then, like I said, we made those changes. Oso came in, they complemented each other really well, and we kind of settled. Stefan Eustáquio settled back down, and we looked good again. Now moving into our two strikers, both of which hit 30 goals for the Canadian men's national team. The first two to ever do it. I'm sure Kyle Larin will have some bragging rights in the dressing room as he did it about 45 minutes before Jonathan David did. So, I guess the typical, some bragging rights, But let's start with David first. Can we say he's the best striker in the world, not named Erling Haaland or Harry Kane? I've been saying for years, I find that Jonathan David plays a lot like Harry Kane, and I don't think that was any different in this match. And before I kind of go any further, I will say that in my personal life, and I'm sure probably on this podcast a little bit, I have been very, very critical of Jonathan David, as there was times where I felt as though he wasn't playing at his best when we needed him to be. I'm kind of looking at that World Cup run and that Nations League final, and it really kind of, you expect the best from your best players, and I felt as though maybe he didn't turn up as we would have liked him to. But I will eat my words. He is a phenomenal player and a phenomenal striker, and yeah, I'll eat my words, guys. I will. I'm man enough to admit when maybe I was a little bit critical, a little bit too harsh, and I will put my hands up. He's the real deal. Like I said, probably the best striker outside of those two in the world. In my absolute worst, he's a top 5 in the world, I would say. He's 100% the best in CONCACAF. And he's a great all-around player. We've seen it for Canada. We've seen it again. He's willing to drop back, almost play as a number 10, where he's kind of distributing, kind of trying to create chances instead of just being the number 9 poacher. He's more than that. He's an all-around player, if that makes sense. And I think this last little bit is the best that Jonathan David has played. And that's saying something, because Jonathan David has been putting up great numbers his entire career. But since the Copa, I would say, because I thought he was very good for us during the Copa. And since then, I think that this is the best that he's played. This is definitely the best start to a season that he's had. He's firing on all fronts for club and country right now. And I'm just very glad that he is Canadian and, once again, has made me eat my words for those times where I was critical of him. But yeah, he's absolutely that guy. He is the Iceman, as they say. And once again, I'm so happy that Canada has a player of the caliber of Jonathan David. And if it wasn't for Alphonso Davies, we would probably be saying that he's the best player in CONCACAF, because at the moment, I can't think of anybody who is better than him. You can name your Weston McKennie's, Christian Pulisic's. I don't know who else you would want to bring to the conversation that isn't Canadian, in all fairness, I would say. Who is better than him outside of Alphonso Davies? I'm not sure there is anybody in CONCACAF, right? Like, I think we can say that. Yeah, we'll say that. But looking at his strike partner on the night and his strike partner that he's had for many years for the national team, Kyle Larin, I'm very, very happy. This goal was well-deserved. I've been saying for a while now, his performances have been there with Marsh, just was missing out on the reward of a goal, and he finally got it. And like I said, was his 30th goal for the men's national team. Him and David got it on the same night. It feels very poetic, if you ask me. The only two men to have 30 goals for the national team, and they get them about 45 minutes apart. It's just good to see because like I said, his performances have been there. I thought it was a good performance again from him tonight, but he finally gets that goal. And at club level, he kind of came into this international break in really good form. A goal, 2 assists in his last couple of games. So we were really, me particularly, I don't know about you, we were really hoping that he was going to replicate that goal scoring form that he's had. And he did. He did just that. And I think it's a big step for him under Jesse Marsh as it's your first one. So hopefully he can kick on, especially coming into the Nations League games in November. Hopefully he can kind of carry that form out. And moving into our subs for the game, and I do think that they changed the game. They helped the pendulum swing back into our direction. And we're going to start out with Jonathan Osorio. And I'm sorry, you guys know how much I love Oso. He's just that reliable guy, isn't he? He's now our 5th most capped player in men's team history, of course. 81 caps, tied with Dwayne De Rosario, actually. He's just so reliable. And even if he's not starting for you, you know you can introduce him into a game at any stage, and he's going to be a reliable player. He's going to put in a shift. He's going to work hard. Help sell the game, as I alluded to earlier with Stefan Eustáquio. I thought he linked up really well with Liam Miller. And then when Saliba came in, I thought they worked well together too, especially for a young guy like Saliba. For Jonathan Osorio, I'm not sure how much the two have ever played together because it would only be the one cap for Saliba that they would have played together if Oso was on the field at the time. So they played well together for two guys that haven't played a professional match together. And I think that's just a credit to both men. But since we're talking about Osorio, I think that's a credit to Jonathan Osorio for being able to be that, like I said, just being that guy to be able to rely on. You're going to get a good performance from him. And he's just so good. You don't get to 81 caps for your country without being a very good player. And that's what Jonathan Osorio is, a very, very good player and one of my favorites of all time. Looking at the guy he came on with, of course, Liam Miller, who I already spoke about in depth a little bit ago, but I really think he helped change the game. Wasn't afraid to take on his man, carried the ball well, was a consistent threat, kept floating the ball into the box and creating chances. Of course, was rewarded with the game-winning assist for that David goal. It was a great play, well-earned minutes for the man in top form for Hull, and for my money, one of Hull's top performers this season. So playing consistently for a top club in his league has made the difference, I think, for him. He was playing really well last season, but now playing, kind of taking that step up from Preston to Hull. I know, same league, but taking that step up from kind of a mid-level championship team to a championship team that's trying to get into the Prem, I think it's made the world of difference. He looks a creative spark. He just looks like a really well-rounded creative winger, not midfielder. If you follow me on socials, you'll know I'm a big fan of Liam Miller. So yes, the Liam Miller hive, we absolutely do rise. Now looking at Nathan Saliba, who, by the way, is still the best Saliba in world football. Reminds me of Samuel Piat, but a little bit more raw, which isn't a bad thing, and it's expected for someone who's about 20 years old. Yes, 20 years old, and has already earned his second cap on his second ever call-up. I think he's got a bright future. He looked very calm and assured in the midfield, and he's captained CF Montreal a couple of times this season, so he obviously has something about him, and I think this won't be the last we see of him. Knock on wood. And looking at Theo Bair, who came in with Saliba, listeners know I'm a big fan of Theo Bair. The Azure man, I'm sorry, I tried to say it last episode when we talked about Theo Bair. I'm not sure I'm ever going to get it. I've been trying. But coming off of the season of his life with Motherwell, and side note, there's a great video on Motherwell's YouTube of Theo Bair and the club kind of talking about how hard he worked to have that season, knowing how low the expectations were for him coming from Motherwell to Motherwell from St. Johnstone in Scotland. It makes it really easy to love this guy and root for him because he's got that work rate, the heart, the desire. It's all there. And now in League 1, and in this cap, he gets about 15-20 minutes, and I thought he looked really good. Wasn't just fingertips away from opening his Canada account, and I'm sure that first goal for the Canucks will come soon, hopefully maybe during next window. And hopefully it's the game I'm in attendance for. I'd probably lose my mind. I think he's a very good striker, a great option off the bench, was making some good runs, held the ball up really nicely, linked up well with David. Great to see him back in the setup, and long may it continue for Theo Bair. Our final two subs were Waterman and Poku, who got just a couple of minutes. Not much to say apart from what a win for the CPL as two alums came off the bench for Canada. It's great to see Joel Waterman getting a cap, and of course Kwesi Poku making his debut. So well deserved. And yeah, that does bring us to the end of this episode of Maple Footy. This was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, so my apologies for that. And thank you for listening if you did stick around. Another international break with another big win for the boys in red. We played well and we got a good result. It was a hard-fought result. And yeah, Canadian coverage will be back in November. Canadian men's national team, I should say, will be back in November. Very excited for that break. We'll see how those games go. Prem recap will follow this match recap, so keep an eye out for that. And of course, the CPL playoffs will start on Wednesday, the 23rd of October. So the first game will be played between York United and Pacific FC. Then Sunday on the 27th, Hamilton's Forge FC will host Cavalry in a rematch of last year's final, with a spot in the final and hosting duties up for grabs in that one. On the same day, Atletico Ottawa will face the winner of York and Pacific. Then the winner of that match will face the loser of Cavalry and Forge on November 2nd, with a spot in the final up for grabs. Then the final will take place on November 9th. Makes sense? No, maybe not. That's okay. I'll be holding your hand throughout. We'll get this together. I'll be covering it all. There are going to be some great games, some great Canadian footy on display. And it is a different kind of format. I think it's a pretty cool one for a league that only has 8 teams. Next step, I think, is to hopefully expand on teams. And I have tweeted in the past, I believe that with the market and cities in Canada, I think we could see a double. Honestly, I genuinely think we could double the size of this league. I'm not kidding. Obviously it won't happen overnight. Like, I don't expect it to be next season all of a sudden there's 16 teams in the league, but I do think that given time, given financial backing, given certain markets and everything, I do think that this could happen. I do think that they could double in size. I really do, and I think it will be great for the Canadian game. But back on track here, looking at how I'm kind of going to do the episode recaps for each game, I'm going to aim for day after each game. So the game on the 23rd, hopefully I'll get the recap up on the 24th. The games on the 27th would be the 28th, and so on and so forth. Keep posted on my social medias. Of course, I will update on there when episodes will drop. I will, like I said, try for day after, hopefully no later than 2 days after the games. I am a one-man operation. I work a job, I go to school, so I will do these as quickly and at the best quality, because that's what matters to me. That's why sometimes it might take a little bit longer. It's the quality. I don't want to be putting out something that's not good. This league deserves great coverage, and I want to hopefully bring some great coverage to you for this league, because I think it's a great league, and I think that the more people talking about it, the more people knowing about it, following along with it, the better it can be. So I want these episodes that will be coming out, I want them to be some of the best I'm doing, and I really hope they are. I hope you guys enjoy, because this is what you guys wanted, and I did want it as well. Let's not act like I didn't either. This is what we all collectively wanted for the Maple Footy podcast. So we will be rooting for Forge FC, of course. Hopefully they win their 5th of 6. Last year, they broke the host curse by being the first team to win as the host. Now, this year, they'll hopefully break the first place curse, as no team who's ever finished first in the league has ever won that North Star. So, with that being said, check my socials for any updates. Keep watching, following, and supporting Canadian football. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.